100 years, the American Legion has been our nation's leading advocate for veterans and their families.
I am the American Legion.
This is today's American Legion.
To learn more, visit legion.org.
Talk 1470 is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network.
Homeowners, would you like to save money each and every month? Of course you would. We all want to save money, but how? By calling Debbie at I Will Advisors, that's how, and have her review your homeowner's policy. Most homeowners never review their policy, but it should be reviewed every year. You commercial property owners, same goes for you. So what are you waiting for? Call Debbie at I Will Advisors and start saving money. 954-753-8080. 954-753-8080.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Well, good evening. It's Monday night at 9 o'clock. That means it's time for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers. My name is Dr. Richard Siegel. I'm a certified sex therapist and director of Modern Sex Therapy Institutes.
And I am Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And part of our esteemed faculty at the Institute.
Yes.
So this is our weekly opportunity to be just a couple of dudes talking about sex. Mm-hmm. We are on the radio in South Florida. We're on 95.3 FM and 1470 on the AM dial, WNN. You can watch us live streaming on Facebook. And you may call in with questions, join a conversation. Please make note of the number. It's 888-565-1470. We'd love to hear from you, answer your questions, or, again, hear your comments if you'd like to jump into the conversation.
Right. And as we're live streaming on Facebook, you can also send us questions or comments that way as well.
There's a little button there on the Facebook page for Sex Talk with the Siegel brothers to send us an email. So, my brother.
So, an interesting week.
It has been.
But first of all, you spent this week up in Philadelphia.
I did.
At a big grown-up conference.
One of our two major sexological organizations. This one called STAR, the Society for Sex Therapy and Research. We have to look forward to our trip in June to Denver, where we'll enjoy our annual conference for ASEX, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. That's a lungful. But it's really, it's incredible when, we complain. If you listen to the show somewhat regularly, you hear us complain about what a small field this is, why all psychotherapists aren't sex therapists, why it should be just an automatic part of the training. But while it is such a small field, it's awesome that we get together, it's like a family reunion, and we see these people, sometimes, old friends and colleagues, but especially at STAR conferences, you're sitting in the room with people whose books you've studied, and becoming a therapist, and living legends over there, and people who started the organization over here. It's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it really, I've thought about that too, even when you came back and you were relaying, regards from people. And, it got me thinking, and even, the years that I was part of the neuroscience community and when I was doing the drug and brain research and was going to the neuroscience conferences, I always felt alien. I always felt like there was sort of me in this sea of people that I had to make my way through. Yeah. Yet in these conferences, it's family. It's really gotten, I think, kind of cliche, but it does feel homey. It does feel like we know all these people. That, I can look at this person or maybe even somebody that we haven't met through other connections to say, wow, I've admired your work. I've used your books. I've studied. And they can turn around and say, I love what you do. I'm such a big fan of what. and it can be really
Or
kind of
I
mind-blowing.
attended a workshop you did 5 years ago.
Oh,
and it
that's
was really
yeah. I really
juice.
haven't gotten that in any other kind of professional
Yeah.
community. So it's
awesome.
It really is. It really is.
But again, it's also frustrating that, what's the maximum? 600, 700 therapists and counselors and educators from all over the world.
Right.
Now, of course, not everybody can make it to the conferences every year, but there's got to be 600-700 therapists here in Boca del Rey.
Oh, sure. Hey,
right?
our Denver conference sold out at what, 700?
I don't know what the number is. Hasn't sold out in a long time.
No.
I think a lot of old people just want to go to Colorado and cut loose because it's trendy.
and get themselves on the pot.
It's on the pot. But it's going to be a great conference. We're really looking forward to that. And this is how we become better therapists.
Absolutely.
Right?
And what we get to learn as well, we have, we're going to be busy. Right? We're both doing pre-conference institutes. We're both doing workshops during the conference, leading meetings and panels and things like that. But even going to do, not just to attend and learn, it's the learning is just everywhere. Even conversations in the hallway.
Yes, of course.
With and talking with some of these great leaders. Just the informal conversations are sometimes the most valuable.
Sure.
So it's really looking forward to it being a great experience.
And of course, this summer, though it won't actually be in hand at the conference in June, I'll be shamelessly plugging the upcoming first of its kind textbook called The Art of Sex Therapy Supervision, co-edited by my dear friend and colleague, Dr. James Wadley in Philadelphia, and yours truly. I'm really excited about that.
Yes,
but we
as
won't
well
be
you
able
should be.
to, maybe the following conference, we'll have a real
I think
its official debut.
We'll be coming back here in the near future talking about congratulating you for receiving the book award.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to happen.
We've had 16 chapter authors representing true thought leaders in the field, and hopefully, like I said, the first of its kind, hopefully an effective tome to help train the next generation of therapists to not be so ridiculously sex-phobic and avoidant as we're always complaining on this show. I mean, people who've got a license from a state, from a certifying body, to deign to have the audacity to step into the most private, personal aspects of people's lives, of couples' lives, of families' lives, to offer some kind of help. And then lead with their own discomforts and squirminess and avoidance. Like how many times have we heard couples complaining? We asked our therapist to talk about a sexual problem, and the therapist said, no,
not yet.
We have to talk about your communication.
Right. We're
first.
not there yet. And therapists, I would say, no, you have to build up a rapport. You have to get to a place where you can ease into the sexual issues. You can't just jump into that, which, of course you can. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody's coming to you for a sexual problem.
They
don't want you to lead them into it. It's their comfort. That's countertransference.
Exactly. Especially remember as my late mentor, my dear friend Susan Lee used to say, what do you do when the problem walks in the door?
Right.
And when the problem walks in the door saying, please help me with this problem,
right.
It's
say,
malpractice.
No, not until I'm comfortable.
I don't think, I'm not comfortable enough to address your issue yet. I say get out of the field.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Or at least get some training.
Get some training.
Yeah.
Right? Modern Sex Therapy
get your stuff
Institute.
tight.
www.modernsextherapy.com. There's a good place to start.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what it's for.
I do have to give a shout out to my business partner, the brilliant West Palm Beach psychologist, Dr. Rachel Needle. You may see her on the local news very often in the Palm Beach County area. She's one of those go-to experts. And just incredibly proud of the work we've done together, putting together now even more specific training modules, like, for example, for therapists to become more proficient and comfortable working with the alphabet soup of sexual minorities, the LGBTQIA, NGC, ...
Right.
Yeah. And another certificate track to work with alt sex, kink, and non-vanilla and non-traditional kinds of things. We're partnering with, renowned leaders in the field. Joe Court on the first one, author, sex therapist, author, educator from Michigan, and Michael Aaron, who was a guest on our show a couple months back with the Alternative Sexualities program. He's out of Manhattan. Also want to plug his conference if you happen to be in New York this Friday, the 27th, his full-day alt sex conference. I believe it's the third annual with Michael and Dulcinea Pitagoria. We're incredibly lucky to work in this very weird field. But it's just, why does the majority of the population still get so squirrely, and why, I guess we can introduce our theme for the evening. Why is discomfort still the leading emotion when we're talking about the most universal thing that every human being on the planet shares in common?
Right, and is so pervasive in everybody's everyday life. Regardless of what they do or don't do, it's what they are.
Right.
I mean,
remember,
even,
we can't emphasize that strongly enough or often enough that sexuality is not merely genital acts, but sexuality is who we are as human beings. There's no human being that is utterly asexual. I mean, yes, we've talked about asexuality as an orientation, people who just don't feel horny or don't...
Okay, but again, that's generally behaviorally focused.
Yeah.
Right? They're still sexual in other ways.
Right. I mean, if we have sexual parts and they're working and they're not numb from some spinal cord injury, even if they are.
Even if they are, that is an element of sexuality too.
Right.
Sure. You know, it's again part of this everyday thing. You know, and why do people that we separate so much from it? Your partner, Rachel Needle, she and I are both quoted in a CNN.com article. You can check it out.
Look at you.
But it was kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah.
That you were kind of approached with on how or why sharing chores, household chores, like doing dishes and laundry in particular, are very, very highly correlated with much more frequent and more satisfying sexual encounters.
And
so
why do you think?
If you share chores, especially those two, people usually have a much better sex life. And I think a lot of it is especially a guy is willing to, talking about heterosexual relationships, a guy who is willing to not grudgingly share,
right?
Because in those cases, there isn't much of a difference in sexual satisfaction, but one that is enthusiastically sharing. When people can approach the relationship saying, you know what, I know it generally sucks that you maybe as a woman are generally by default meant to do these things. And more than I know I'm supposed to contribute, so I'll do it with you because I'm supposed to. But if it's that I understand that and I am going to take some of that burden off you, we're going to do this together.
That's a team.
Right. But I think it also has something to do with the base level. Right? Laundry and dishes, you're literally cleaning up some type of excrement from that person, right? And I think when women in particular are sort of just default to having it be their responsibility, there's a lot of dissatisfaction and a lot of women that want to say something but don't, which adds to that resentment. And where we generally don't see that as an issue is in same-sex couples. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that they don't just automatically default to traditional gender standards.
Right, because
and
they're,
gender roles.
You know, they share the same gender. They have to talk about it more. They have to communicate, and it has to be a negotiation how we're going to divvy up the household chores. Yeah, I love how there's gendered chores. Right? Laundry and cooking is for women, but cutting the lawn and barbecuing is for men.
Right. And cooking only inside the house.
That's right. Because if you're cooking on the barbecue, you're barbecuing.
Not even on the barbecue,
cooking.
In a restaurant, outside for other people.
Sure, chefs.
Julia Child was the first female master chef.
Really?
For literally thousands of years. If you were cooking for other people, you're a man.
Yeah.
That's a man's job. But
yeah,
in
remember,
the home,
a man probably invented quiche Lorraine and you know, gets into that whole weird homophobic thing like there's straight and gay food.
Right. So on that, again, we'll move into what we're going to talk about. But let me just sort of on that sort of leave a message behind. Because remember in the 70s, late 70s, I think it was, there was a book called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche.
I do remember,
right?
yes.
And I would like to say that not only do real men eat quiche, but they make it really well.
We do. Mm-hmm. We make a mean. So I learned how to make quiche from you.
Right. So our topic for tonight, like you started talking about, related to this pervasive discomfort that people have, that refusal to connect with their sexuality or even their sexual behavior. Mm-hmm. All right. So go ahead, take that.
Well, what's the default? If someone is so uncomfortable with their own and their other sexuality, is to medicate.
Right.
Right? I have to get out of my head a little bit. I have to disinhibit because my own natural inhibitions make me anxious and freaked out.
Right.
So the default is, we're going to have sex? We'd have to have a couple of drinks first.
Right, exactly.
I mean, even just look at dating, or in particular nowadays, like app dating, dating apps. I hear it all the time. That's the default. You meet somebody, you have a couple drinks, then you have to have sex.
Absolutely. I mean, guys in a dance, again, heterosexual guys mostly, go to a club. I think there's a big gender split right there, that when women generally walk into a club, if they hear a song they like, they go right out to the dance floor.
Yeah.
A guy walks in, it may be one of his favorite songs, but he's not going to get on the dance floor until he's had a drink.
Yeah, because
and part of that is moving the body. Exactly. So even dancing needs that disinhibition.
But see, that disinhibition, I can't. It seems it can't come without the sinister, predatory thing right behind it. Like, remember years ago we had this conversation. I think it was a student that made a comment like, "How could it be? How isn't it stupid business? How could it be good business for a bar to offer free drinks to women? They must lose thousands." And I said, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
Offering free, ladies' night, free drinks for women.
Who are they advertising that
it's
to?
Like smearing salmon with honey for the bears. Right? They're attracting guys who are going to spend money more than double the money. We have a Facebook comment. Love this topic. I always tell young people in regards to gender roles, as long as it's the end of the day, my house is still standing and... There's more, Sharon.
Thanks for writing in, Sarah.
Sarah, we're not getting your whole comment. Let's see if I can find it.
See if you can pull that up. But yeah, I think in terms of gendered behavior, childbirth, that's gendered behavior. Writing your name in the snow, that's gendered behavior. There's very few things that we could say really are gendered behavior.
Writing your name in the snow.
So again, this sense of discomfort, uncomfortableness could potentially stem from past trauma. Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
It could be trauma, but it could also be just general anxiety because we don't teach people about any of this stuff. But there's a strong expectation that we're supposed to know this.
Remember a couple of weeks ago when we had our secret reunion with Betty Capros, who came in the studio, and she made that really profound point that...
Secret to me, not anybody else.
That too many people who are having intercourse together are not actually having sex with each other. They're just getting off together.
Right.
And I think that discomfort starts with that kind of fear of intimacy where we've been talking about for years, the difference between, nakedness as vulnerability, not literally naked like without clothes, which, I've said a billion times, in the dark with a good buzz on is easy to do.
Right.
But being figuratively naked,
vulnerable,
genuine,
exposed,
showing someone your goofy orgasm face.
Right.
It's why people have to get wasted before they can be brave enough to do that.
From a guy's perspective as well, we know that a lot of guys also come in with this sort of foundational fear of their performance. So there's also that sense of having to medicate, usually to last longer, usually medicating against rapid or premature ejaculation. Which often means that they're medicating themselves into erectile dysfunction.
Well, again, something else we've been talking about for a long time, but the trend has changed because, traditionally, since we were young and all the way back to the the 50s and probably forever, the go-to was alcohol for staying power. If a young guy was worried about, being too quick and being humiliated, then not only would the alcohol calm all the scary nerves, oh my God, I can't believe we're going to have sex. Now he's smooth as Don Juan.
For sure, it's
but
the social lubricant.
It'll also delay, give him that staying power to last longer.
Right.
Now, kids are using opiates for that reason.
Right.
They're using opiates because opiates block the ejaculatory response. They don't affect erections like alcohol does.
Right.
There's this thing called whiskey bleep that most guys are familiar with, drinking too much, and then there's just no response.
Right. You remember what the guy said to you in treatment one time?
Yeah. This heroin addict would talk about, he described these nuisance erections that were like in the way because it was way too much work to do anything with them. So he
could not ejaculate, but could get an erection.
Yeah, he described these erections like riding the bicycle with the kickstand down, like just in the way. Like the only kind of penetration and orgasm they were having was this way.
Right.
They were penetrating each other with needles and
it's
orgasming
symbolic intercourse, I used to call it.
With an opiate rush, and sexual dysfunction had it so that, most active junkies really stop having sex.
Right. Okay.
Until treatment. Then withdrawal, now they're screwing like squirrel monkeys. Anybody who stands
also
still too
masturbating
long.
furiously to try to medicate the withdrawal.
The withdrawal symptoms.
Sure. All right, to kind of play devil's advocate, so what? So you have all these guys that are using opiates now to medicate themselves against any kind of sexual... I mean, again, other than what it does for them, so a guy gets erectile dysfunction. So, I mean, is it really such a big deal? Do we really look at that as part of this opioid crisis?
If it makes him a junkie, yeah. Recently I treated a 23-year-old kid that had been in treatment 4 times, completed treatment 4 times. I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars his parents paid. Before finally in the 5th treatment, a primary therapist asked him about sexuality and a connection. And he said, yeah, no brainer. Without using Roxy's, without using blues, oxycodone, he'd be a rapid ejaculator. And what guy's going to make that choice? Let me see, I'm going to be humiliated and feel like a lousy lover, or I'm going to relapse again.
Right.
So his choice was basically sobriety and celibacy, or maintaining a sex life and using opiates.
Right. And I think where the stakes have gotten a lot higher. As it's gotten much harder to get oxys and roxys and the pharmaceutical opiates. This has been something that's blown me away for the last couple of years.
I know.
You talk about switching
our pharmaceutical
the
industry created one of the worst drug crises we've ever had in our history.
Well, yeah, but it used to be that people would abuse the pharmaceuticals because they couldn't get their heroin.
Right.
Now, heroin is the fallback because they can't get the pharmaceuticals.
And now more and more heroin has fentanyl.
Oh, this cheap Chinese and Russian fentanyl, which is impure,
thousands
it is tainted,
of times
it is
pure.
not quality, but it's potent. And one of the things, I think the biggest issue that we're seeing now that does relate to this sexual discomfort as well as this opioid crisis is we have a lot of pockets now in this country, forget around the world, just in this country, where we are seeing spikes in the HIV infection rate.
Yes.
That is directly related to the opioid use. And in particular, all the fentanyl that's on the street. There was an article in the Huffington Post, I think last week, no, maybe about 2 weeks ago, that you're kind of talking about that. And it got me to think a little bit differently. That, fentanyl, heroin, okay, no big deal, same difference we're talking about. But there really is, I think, a contributor to the HIV factor.
You mean just using more? Because the drug lasts off, the drug wears off quicker.
Right. The fentanyl that is more potent, yet much shorter half-life.
But that potency thing is the killer, right? Because we're talking, people don't realize this. We're talking about a drug that's active in the microgram range, not milligrams.
Right, micrograms.
And, if anybody's watching or listening, just to, having your trouble wrapping your head around what that means, a gram, maybe it's easier for some people than others to picture what a gram of white powder looks like on a table. But like picture 2 500 milligram Tylenols or 2 vitamin C tablets. You crush that up, that's a gram. That's 1,000 milligrams. So 1 milligram is 1,000th of that little white pile. A microgram, if you remember your metrics, is a 1,000th of a milligram.
Right.
Which is a millionth of a gram.
Right.
How is some heroin dealer going to measure out on a triple beam balance on their kitchen table the difference between 5 micrograms, a good high, and 15 micrograms, an overdose lethal killer?
Right.
And bodies,
that is the main reason why there are so many deaths associated with this epidemic.
A lot of times,
it
people's
is the
first
fentanyl
dose.
overdose. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I want to keep focused on this connection. Everything we can say and has been said about this opioid problem that we've been dealing with, this epidemic, it has gotten to just proportions we have never seen before. We know some of that is foreign policy, right? We know since we've been in Afghanistan, opium production has risen to a level of 40% greater than world demand. Things like that.
That's a hard stat to wrap your head around.
Yeah, plus
right?
all the other heroin-producing countries now and the fentanyl that's being out there. And, of course, part of that transition is that injectable is the preferred method of use. And with the fentanyl being that it's shorter acting,
they need to dose more often.
They need to do it even more.
So there's more needle sharing.
Much more needle sharing, absolutely.
But we still can't lose sight of the sexual connection.
No,
especially
no.
when we first started doing this, when you were doing sex ed and I was working in drug and alcohol treatment, the only connections, people said HIV risk with a drug-using population was sharing needles or prostituting for crack.
Right.
How about just how many beers is one beer too many to lose judgment and not use a condom and put yourself at risk? Any substance abuse is an HIV risk.
Alcohol is actually the drug most closely associated with HIV infection.
And any other STD. Hey, colleagues in the gay community, among young men, meth is the drug.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
Thank you, John. Thanks for listening.
Hey, John. Nice to see you there. And let me also add that it's not just meth. It's part of a kind of a club cocktail. It's often meth plus vodka and Red Bull and Viagra.
Yes. But that's, we'll have to do another show on this with a nod to Doug Braun Harvey's work and the idea of not sex addiction and drug addiction, but sex-drug-linked behaviors. And for John, I'm glad you brought that up. For a lot of gay men in recovery, the idea of separating sex without meth becomes
it's almost unfathomable.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and the way we're dealing with it, I should say, or not dealing with it, we have to call shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
And I wish there was a duck that would kind of pop down right now, say the secret word. Right?
They're too young to know about Groucho Marx and the duck coming down with the secret word.
Especially for those of our students that are listening there tonight.
The secret word is shenanigans. You'll know what that means.
That's
Everybody
right.
else is thinking, what the heck are these guys talking about?
Exactly.
So, we got to wind it down. But this is an important topic we will revisit.
Right.
And just want to remind any therapists out there who may be listening, if you're interested in continuing education, please check out our website at modernsextherapy.com. Until we meet again next Monday, I'm Ricky Siegel,
and
my
I'm
brother
Larry
Siegel. Thanks for listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. See you next week.
Have a great one.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week.
The opinions expressed on the